The Midnight Show. In the early 90s, there was a public access TV show called The Midnight Hour. It aired every night at midnight and featured strange, unsettling content that no one could quite explain. The host, a mysterious figure known only as the Keeper, would appear on screen dressed in a long black cloak and hood, his face obscured by shadows. He would speak in a deep, eerie voice, welcoming viewers to the show and promising them a glimpse into the unknown. The show's segments included footage of ghostly apparitions, unexplained phenomena, and even alleged demon possessions. Many of the segments were accompanied by a haunting melody that seemed to echo through the viewer's mind long after the show had ended. The Keeper would often speak directly to the camera, as if he were speaking directly to the viewer, and his words were always cryptic and unsettling. The station received complaints that some viewers began experiencing strange occurrences in their own lives. Many reported nightmares, hallucinations, and even physical manifestations of the entities featured on the show. Despite these reports, the show continued to air, and the Keeper's influence seemed to grow stronger with each passing episode. As the years passed, the show's content became increasingly disturbing, and many viewers were too afraid to watch it. Eventually, the show was pulled off the air, but the legend of the Midnight Hour and the Keeper lived on as urban legends. Some say you can summon the Keeper by standing in front of a television in the dark and humming the show's melody. He'll ask you to be a guest on the show. Refuse this offer. Those who accept are doomed to spend eternity as a member of the show's audience. The Love Interest. Landing a reoccurring role in The Young and the Restless was a dream come true for actress Tonya Kurtz, as well as the beginning of a living nightmare. Only days after her initial appearance on the show, she began noticing a man at too many places during her day for it to be a coincidence, and was concerned she had a stalker. The man looked to be in his mid-20s, her age, with intense dark eyes that seemed too wide open to be a natural expression. It was almost as if the stare was intended to frighten her. Was he just a star-fixated fan with too much time on his hands, or something else? People on the set were sympathetic, but couldn't offer much useful advice. That evening, as Tonya closed up her second-floor apartment before bed, she glanced out a front window and was startled to see the man standing across the street in the shadows, just beyond the glow of the street lamp, staring up at her. This is too much, she thought to herself, and called 911. A half hour later, there was a knock at her door. Assuming it was the police, she rushed to answer it, but instinctively looked through the peephole. For an instant, she stared into the bulbous black eyes of her stalker, then yelped and jumped back. "Go away!" she screamed. "The police are on their way." Tonya barricaded herself in her bedroom and called the police again. 10 anxious minutes later, there were more knocks on her front door, but she could hear the police announcing themselves and sighed with relief. They hadn't seen anyone, but would patrol the area more often than usual throughout the evening. Tired and surly, Tonya walked through the backstage area of the set to makeup the next morning. Candy had her sit in a chair and began transforming Tonya into her pampered rich girl character, Eve Corbett, while telling sleep-inducing stories of her love life. Candy was working on her closed eyes when Tonya heard the voice of one of the show's producers, Paul Conklin. "Tonya, I'd like you to meet our newest cast member and your new love interest on the show, Thomas Volker." Tonya opened her eyes and found herself staring at the smiling face of her stalker. "A pleasure to finally meet you," he said. Gluttonous Pig. Joe heard a knock on his door. He answered, revealing a skinny delivery driver holding a brown paper bag showing the familiar golden arches of McDonald's. Strange, he thought. I never ordered anything. He was also surprised to find that the food had already been paid for. He was hungry, so he wasn't going to complain. After all, it was free food. He gratefully took the bag and closed the door and proceeded to stuff his face with the 2 Big Mac meals. Feeling stuffed after his mini feast, he went back on his PlayStation and had a few rounds with his mates until his eyes grew heavy. He went to bed and woke up the next morning feeling refreshed and ready for another gaming session with his friends. But as soon as he turned his PlayStation on, he noticed he had received a message from someone who wasn't on his friends list. The PSN ID was named Gluttonous Pig 84, and the message read, "Did you enjoy the meal, little piggy?" Joe assumed it was one of his friends messing with him, and he ignored it. If he was going to get trolled, he didn't mind, especially if it meant free food. He loaded up his game and played until he heard another knock on his door. It was another fast food delivery, this time 5 double bacon cheeseburgers from Burger King. Once again, it had been paid for, courtesy of his new friend, Gluttonous Pig 84. He then proceeded to fill his face with a greasy goodness. When he checked his PlayStation the next day, he had another message from Gluttonous Pig 84. "Good pig." Again, he ignored the weird message and began yet another long gaming session. 1 year passed, and Joe had not paid for his food once. He had grown very fat over this time. He could barely even walk anymore. Being confined to his house all day, every day, was taking its toll on his own sanity. He had become paranoid. Could swear he was seeing someone peering through his window as he tried to sleep. And the messages had never stopped either. Each one grew more sinister. The latest had really creeped him out. It read, "It's almost time, little piggy." Gluttonous Pig 84 was not helping his anxiety, only giving it more fuel. His paranoia soon became reality. He was suddenly woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of his front door being smashed in with frightening force. He heard the heavy footsteps approaching his bedroom door. The doorknob turned, and the door opened, revealing a giant of a man wearing a pig mask. He was holding a crossbow pointed right at Joe as he lay there defenseless in his bed. He shot a bolt directly into Joe's eye, killing him instantly. The pig man approached his lifeless body and spoke with a happy tone. "I'm going to be eating well tonight." It's too perfect. "Hey, there's no school today. You don't need an alarm." "What? Why?" "Now this is news to me. It wasn't supposed to snow last night." "But Dad, isn't it supposed to be like perfect outside today?" No snow? Yeah, that's the point. It's too perfect. Okay, now I'm just confused. I stare at my dad for a while, trying to understand what he could possibly mean by it's too perfect. What do you mean it's too perfect outside? That doesn't make any sense. My voice was starting to get louder as I was starting to wake up more. This really hurt my brain this early in the morning. My dad sighs. Come outside and I'll show you what I mean. I reluctantly get up and follow my dad downstairs to the door. He doesn't open it yet, but I can see a faint yellow glow coming from the window. Okay, this might seem a little weird, but I haven't found a reason to freak out yet, so neither should you. He slowly opens the door, and I just stand there with my mouth hanging wide open. The sun was up and shining, giving everything a nice warm glow. All the trees were alive with little critters running everywhere. The grass was just incredibly green. There was a slight breeze making the 95 degrees feel like a nice 90. Birds were singing wonderful tunes. It just looked and felt amazing. Now, this would be all fun and whatnot if it wasn't in the middle of January in Alaska. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel. Your generosity means the world to me. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchess.ofdarkness or Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. I want to thank you all for your support, your kindness, and your encouragement. I appreciate it so very much. Until next time.